Our guest is a Dutch-Ghanaian life coach, speaker, a serial entrepreneur, one that actually found himself relating more to his people than he had imagined. His newly found platform, Africans Like Me, seeks to celebrate Africans in the diaspora. And what may also spark your interest is that he is a former pastor who has taken on a more specific life mission of coaching people while he drives his taxi business. Let's talk about how he connects his true passion of coaching people to his serial entrepreneurship. Please help me welcome Oliver Yeboah.
All right. Wow.
I can hear you. How are you doing, Mr. Oliver?
I'm doing well. Thank you. I mean, what an introduction.
Let me ask you on that. Business is not as it used to be, or let's say as usual, right? So, due to Corona, there is this thing, a new normal. How are you coping with it?
Yeah, well, the thing is, I don't necessarily say there's a new normal.
Okay.
But as I think, what's his name? Albert Einstein, he said, in the midst of every crisis lies opportunity. You know?
Right.
So I took this situation actually as a new opportunity to do new things, to do things differently than before.
So then you launch new things. Why? Why? What drives you to take on these endeavors? And what is your big why?
Yeah, well, the thing is, you mentioned that I used to be a pastor.
Yep.
I used to drive a taxi. I don't drive that much anymore because
Okay.
I'm more actually the one who's providing, facilitating the driving actually. But the thing is, what I've always said is, if someone comes across me, the person should never be the same again. So I'm kind of a influencer in a way, but not the way that you're used to on social media. I influence people. I want to add things to people's lives whenever they come across me. So I don't do it on that broad of a spectrum on social media, but when you come across me, you'll be a different person. That's mainly my thing, actually.
I had a question that is is it, because since I went through your bio, right? Is it correct to say that counseling is simply something you were, that's your calling. That's something you were made.
Well,
to do.
I used to believe that my calling was to be a pastor.
Okay.
And why is because, growing up as a kid in the church, you see these men, very, they know how to speak, and they're very influential. And I used to hear them speak, and I was like, yeah, that's what I wanted. I want to be a speaker of God. I want to be like the prophets. I just wanted to do the things that they were doing, because I'm a speaker myself. I like to speak. I like to impact people, as you were saying.
Yeah.
So I had in mind that this was my calling. But along the way, I found out that it's not necessarily the title of a pastor that fits me. I'm more a people person, a person. So like we normally in a church, you sit there as a group and then you hear the pastor speaking to you.
Right.
My thing is having personal connection.
Okay.
So I found out after being a pastor for 5 years that actually I shouldn't be talking to groups in that sense, but I should be working on individual, personal basis. And so that's where I actually focus more on my counseling,
Right.
My coaching, and the things that I do now. I still do speaking appointments.
Okay.
Like, for example, when you're getting married and you invite me to come and speak,
Okay.
the thing that I would do is I would not just come and speak. I remember there was this couple who invited me to come and speak, and I said, well, before I come to speak to you at your wedding, I would do at least 6 to 8 sessions with you to see if you really fit, because I'm not giving my blessing to your wedding unless I know what's going to happen. And the funny thing is that people approach me for just speaking, but when they really get to know me and we get through these sessions, they're like, wow, I never knew that this is actually the thing that we really needed and not just a speaker. It's a funny thing that you're
Dive in
saying.
that.
I used to drive as a taxi driver.
Yeah.
And, people don't really consider taxi drivers as, well, educated or,
Exactly.
having a good status. So I remember, especially the first months, and actually all through, but people would get into the car and then they would be like, okay, so it's another black African guy driving taxi. He probably doesn't know anything, or And then one thing I always do when someone gets into the car, I'll be like, "Hoe gaat het?" or "How are you?" And then we start talking, and most of the times after like 5 minutes, they're totally blown away, not expecting what they thought they would have in the car.
Really?
And so I've had a lot of people like. People from like the top statuses, people from big companies, but also like normal people, just like you and me, tourists.
Before you were a pastor in the church.
Yeah.
Which church?
Well, I used to be a 7-day Adventist pastor.
That's SDA, right?
SDA, yeah.
Okay. And how long were you a pastor for?
In total, 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
And you left church. This is not something easy.
No, it wasn't easy.
Not even as a member. You left church as a pastor, right?
It's true.
So, Oliver, how difficult was it to make this shift? And was it a more mental shift, or the entire life had to be adjusted or readjusted?
Well, the thing is, leaving church wasn't easy. And it didn't just happen overnight. It took a couple of years for me to get where I am right now. Actually,
was this in religion or in theology that you had to?
That was actually in theology.
In theology, okay.
In theology, okay. And so the thing with theology is it's not there to make you a better believer per se, right? Theology is there to make you a better thinker, to understand what you're reading and why the things are the way they are. Okay. And so the question, who wrote the first 5 books of the Bible? Normally everyone would say Moses, right, because that's what we had thought, Yeah, so I thought that was a...
Wait, it's not Moses?
Wait, so I thought that was an easy one, right? Okay. So I remember the professor, because I was studying back then in America, and the professor said, write a paper about it. And I was like, why would I write a paper about it? It's easy. I'll just have to write Moses, and that's it. And then he gave me a list of books to read, and I was like... This is an easy one. I'm just going to write a couple of things. And then I started reading, doing some research, and I was like, okay, it's probably not Moses as I thought it was. So I started digging. And once I started noticing that it cannot be Moses, it started shaking, and it wasn't that big at that point that my belief system was falling apart. But it was just that I was like, I've always thought it was Moses, and this is one of the most basic things everyone knows and everyone should know. So then who is it then? And then you start to understand how literature works, actually, how texts are set up, and how one text can look like the other but actually not the same as the other. And so therefore I found out that there could be at least 4 different authors. As a matter of fact, well, it could be a very long discussion on this one, but like, for example, if you look at Genesis 1 and Genesis 2, they sound the same, but they are not the same. One is more like a poetry, and the other one sounds like a historical revelation about how it all went about, which is not. So then you start reading more, and you find out that even Moses tells about his death. He writes about his own death, that he was dead and then he was buried there and there and there. And I was like, how is that possible?
If he's dead.
So these are the basic things I normally talk about, because if I would go deeper into other stuff, we won't be finished today. But all I'm trying to say is, the most basic things that I just took for granted,
Right.
They started shifting, and that's where I started asking more questions, because I'm kind of very skeptic person myself.
Okay.
But then getting there where I was at that point made me more skeptical, you know. And I was like, okay, so then what is it, and who is it, you know? And not getting the answers that I expected made me also very curious.
Curious.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.